Step 2, schedules. This step includes defining the purpose of your class schedule. We're also going to look at examples of master class schedules in self-contained classrooms, and you guys will get to outline your class schedule. I know there's probably going to be pieces that are missing that you can't figure out now, but we'll get the skeleton in place. Some resources for this week include Google Sheet schedule. You'll also get a class set of visuals, and we're going to briefly go over my TRP Handbook, the Transition Routine and Procedure Handbook. Some resources from previous steps that you may need include the IEP profile sheet or the IEPs if you didn't do that in prep week, the floor and zoning plan from step 1. So what is a schedule? A schedule states or shows what a person is doing and when they are doing it. Schedules can take an abstract idea and put it into something more meaningful and concrete. It makes it manageable for students and staff to be able to follow it. Schedules can also be in the form of pictures or words. So let's go through a quick example. I signed up for a training and it only said to arrive at 8 a.m. It didn't say what the end time was. It just said all day. I'm assuming probably for 4:30 because that's what time our trainings usually end. But you get there and they just start the training. They don't tell you, oh, we're going to have lunch at this time. It's going to be an hour long. You can manage your own hygiene needs and just get up and go to the bathroom. Well, I would feel really anxious and really frustrated. And I bet you're probably feeling the same thing too. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not important and 10 being very important, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important do you think schedules are for everyone? Well, for the training, I'd probably say about a 7 or 8. Like, I could have survived, but it would have been difficult. So now think of your students. If they don't know what time they're going to the bathroom, eating, having a snack, what time they're going home, they're going to be frustrated and anxious for most of the day. So how important do you think on a scale from 1 to 10 the schedules are for your students? To do a little analogy, we're going to think of building a schedule as building a barn dominium, which I have no experience doing that, and I have nothing that I know craftsman-wise of exactly what it is. But I do know some basics. You need a foundation and walls. So we're going to go with that. The foundation, walls, ceiling, doors, and then the inside walls to make all the rooms. So those are going to be the skeleton of our schedule. In order to build our master schedule, we need to know a few things. And you may not be able to know all this information right now, but reach out to your team lead or your admin to find these missing pieces. Okay, you need to know the number of staff you have, full-time, part-time, rotational staff, full-time nurses, etc. You also need to know your student ratios. So specifically, autism has specific ratios, but other kids who may need 2 people changing them or things like that. Look in the IEPs or look at your profile sheets that you completed in prep week, and you can find all that information there. Non-negotiable items. What time are you guys going to have breakfast, snack, lunch? What time do they need to get on the bus? What time do they have therapy? What time they go into specials? All of those things are kind of non-negotiables that you don't really have control over. You also need to know the campus bell and rotation schedule. What time do they start? What time do they end? What time can they get there, and how early can they get there? Back to our barn dominium analogy. We put down the foundation, and this is going to include what time school starts, how many staff you have, and what time students can get on campus and leave campus. I used to plan my schedule out with sticky notes, and I would move things around, have different colors and different shapes for different activities throughout the day. If that works for you, great. If not, write it on a piece of paper, lined notebook paper, put it in a Google Sheet to get started, put it in a Word document, however you feel like will work for you to start planning. Okay, what are your campus hours? Look on your campus webpage or your district calendar and find what time you start and what time you end. You also need to find out what time your staff can clock in and clock out, and if you are going to need to be there to fill any of those gaps. You also need to know what time students can be on campus. So we start at 7:40, but kids can be there as early as 7. You need to also know what time y'all dismiss. And for us, we go 5 or 10 minutes a little bit early to avoid the big crowds at the end of the day. You also need to know where your kids are gonna go. The bus loop, the parent drop off, are they independent? They can go on their bike, and what staff need to go with each of those groups, and what kids can be grouped together to do that. So all of that stuff can be done at the beginning of the year, but if you know it now, go ahead and start filling it in. Meet the Teacher is a great place to find out that information, or the beginning of the year checklist. Jot that down if you don't know. The parent survey can also include some of that information if parents want the kids to be picked up or dropped off. And now that we have that foundation, let's build our metaphorical barn dominium walls. So the challenge with building the individual schedule and routine is that it's individualized and it has to meet the needs and the interests of each student. And then you have to find the staff to be able to support all that. So we're just like a big magician up here trying to make it all work. So for our barndominium, our walls will include these non-negotiables. So breakfast, we can't do anything with breakfast because this is the time. Snack, lunch, bathroom, therapy, academics. So once we get all these in place, then we can go in and fine tune and figure out where we can put in math, reading, science, social studies, and all that stuff. You also need to kind of keep in mind extra transition time at the beginning of the year and when your students may or may not need sensory and motor time. If you're not sure about your campus schedule, meet with your team lead or your administration to find out more about that schedule and what it looks like and the bell times. And they may assign you a lunchtime, or you may be able to pick it. So if you're doing this now, you'll be able to be like, oh, this time would be great for lunch and I want this time. All right, hopefully by now you have start time, end time, and food, snack, breakfast, lunch, and specials kind of all skeletoned out. Even if you don't know for sure we're gonna have specials in the morning, make 2 different versions of the schedule and have one for the morning and the afternoon and see if you can play around with either one. For staff lunches, this is what I schedule next. If we're eating lunch at 11, I send staff beforehand to lunch and afterhand to lunch. I eat when my kids eat, and then I come out and support them before and after duty. And then of course, if staff are out, then you just have to make a contingency plan for that to happen. Now on to specials. Ugh. The bane of my existence. Anyways, specials is a conundrum. I know they need it and it's great for them, but it is a struggle. I always say conference. What's that? I don't know what that means, but nonetheless, we make it work. I usually get somewhere, somehow planning, and even if like my students are on a 15-minute break, sometimes I'll just, okay, that's my 15 minutes to plan. You just got to go with the flow. We build up to it. If my students are required to go for the 40 minutes, we start them off by 5 or 10 minutes and we go up to 15 and then 20 and then 25 and then 30. And then that's how they get used to those expectations and those routines. So what if your students have it or don't have it? Check the IEP, check the profile sheet. It'll tell you how many minutes of inclusion they have and where they should be going and what supports they need along the way. And all of that will be in there and you can build your schedule based on that. If it's not in there, then you're probably gonna have to go back to ARD, or we call it ARD in Texas, and tweak that information to make it fit for what they need and what you guys need. Tips for specials or electives. Like I said, depending on the length, you may want to build up to it. And if your students may or may not be going, you'll have to have extra activities in the classroom for them to be able to do, or be able to go to extra recess or motor lab or something like that. And I don't like having specials back to back. I like to split it up. Specials, class, and then specials, because it's difficult, it's too long, it's extra demands, it's less structure, it's more stimulus, and they just come back a lot more worked up and stressed. So I try to split the time up if I can, and then I try to push it more towards the middle of the day, but not backed up to lunch, because that's also a lot. If they have to take all their stuff for specials and all their stuff for lunch, we end up losing things and getting lost and confused and frustrated. So specials, come back to class, and then repeat. Specials, come back to class. So hopefully that is helpful for you guys and you guys can implement the same process. Before school starts, I also meet with the specials teachers and I collaborate with them. I ensure that there's an area for us to have in the room that is still included with our peers, that allows us to be comfortable and maybe leave early if we need to, or, things happen. So if my students are also able to be paired up with other kids, then I make sure we have a spot for them to be paired up around the room with other students. And you may have students going to different locations around campus, just like the dismissal and the bell schedule. You're going to have to split your staff and your students up based on those needs and foster as much success as possible. The ones that can attend the entire time, we start the second full week of school and they attend the entire 40 minutes. And if other students can't attend, like I said, we build them up to that time and build them up to that 40 minutes. Some students can get there by the end of the year. Some students still have trouble, especially after holidays. Now, a big thing to remember is transition times. The first 9 weeks to the first semester, you're going to want to build in extra transition times, because it's going to take you longer to line up. It's going to take you longer to, if you're in the north, put your coat on. If it's going to take you longer to remember to get the lunch boxes together and all of those things. So make sure you have plenty of time set aside to get all that stuff together for your specials and your activities and your campus, and get ready to leave the room successfully. This is where the TRP Handbook can come in. I basically listed all of the transitions, all the routines, and all the procedures in my classes. And then you break down, okay, first, say we're going to put the backpack up. So first, walk into the classroom, take off your backpack, put it on the shelf, take out your daily folder, whatever else you need them to do. So that's the kind of things that you're going to want to look at for lining up. Okay, where do the students line up? For now, you're going to want to set up a structure and routine that everyone can follow, and this is great for you and your staff, so that way it's across the board. It's solidifying the same steps no matter what, and that way when you're gone, all your staff knows how to do things exactly how you were doing it, and you can have that on hand for substitutes that come in and you're like, oh, refer to the TRP Handbook in regards to transitioning to specials. Therapy times. Therapy times are never set up and ready to go. It's usually the second or third week of school. Once I get my skeleton in place in regards to these times are not available for therapy, I send in the available times to my therapist and let them know that they can come and service my kids at these times. They can push in and do a group in the classroom, or they can pull them out and they can do a small group in a different location. They have, like, speech has their own room. Occupational therapy will sometimes go to Motor Lab and do specific things with them. Other times they kind of join in and do whatever we're doing in the classroom at that time. But I found this helpful to tell them, hey, this time to this time is available and this time to this time is available. And let me know what day you're going to be there and we can work it out from there. I also find that right after eating is best. So after breakfast, after snack, or after lunch, as long as it's not conflicting with like an academic core subject. So speaking of core subjects, let's talk about that. We've got all of our stuff into place. Now we can go in our barn dominium and build our little bitty rooms with all of our instruction. So some students do have instruction outside of our class. So how do you find that out? Student IEPs and the profile sheet. Find out if they have any other instruction in another location and build your instructional times around those times that the student is out. If you don't have to worry about that, then don't worry about it. Build your instructional times wherever you'd like to do. I prefer calendar time and reading time as early as possible. Then I do my math time and in science and social studies later in the day. Because science and social studies is a lot more functional, a lot more hands-on, a lot more group work, and a lot less structured. So I build that later on. And then reading and math are pretty essential, and I get a lot more work out of them done in the morning with rotations when I have staff available. I also build in Motor Lab rotations every hour for 10 minutes or so, or as frequently as the student's sensory diet schedule has said that. And that's also something you're going to want to check with OT and PT or the student's IEP to see if they have a sensory schedule. Yay! This covers the majority of the components of your self-contained schedule. Now it's your turn to create one. So here's how we're going to do it, a brief overview. First, find the start time and end time of your school day. How many staff do you have and what time do they get to work? Second, figure out when students arrive and when they can leave, what location they're arriving to on campus. Third, add in lunch, snack, and specials. Fourth, using the IEP profile sheets or the IEPs themselves, note any non-negotiables that are in their schedules in regards to instruction in another location, may or may not have specials, specific therapy, leaves early for ABA, things like that. Fifth, chunk what's left into your core subjects and plan around those times in regards to your rotations. And sixth, voila, you have a rough draft of your schedule. This will change probably 5 times before it's done. So just keep that in mind. This is where you're going to start and gets everybody on the same page to what you're going to be doing during the school day. As always, let me know if you have questions, frustrations, aha moments, anything you come across in this step. I'll see you guys in step 3 for individual schedules, where we take this master schedule, break it down to individual schedules for students and staff. It's where you're really going to see how your classroom comes alive. We talk about rotations, we talk about task analyses, we talk about chaining, we talk about navigating the master schedules. All that stuff that you created today, we put to work into the next step. So I'll see you guys in step 3. We can't go any further back because my dog's right here, so hopefully this will work. An Excel sheet or Excel schedule or class Google Drive, the full floor plan and zoning plan from step 1. Step 1. what do you think the, how do you, waiting for the prompt reader to go. Okay, back to our barn dominium example, and the tortoise is coming out. Hi, Sheldon. I need to show you guys what he looks like. I'll put a picture. Try to remember that. Okay. So as always, let me know if you have questions